I'm also an ADHD entrepreneur, which brings a whole another exciting aspect. I think something that people miss when they say find mentors is how to actually do that. So I think I've talked to people and I'm like, you need to get a mentor, man. And they're like, well, I don't know how to mentor my life. I am on this podcast because I sent a cold DM to Zeke because he looked like a super interesting guy.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very special guest here with us on We're Meant to United podcast. William, welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, you are an experienced marketer, entrepreneur, and I just want to open up this podcast by saying how excited I am to have you here. I'm a marketer myself, so I've just been really excited for the opportunity to have a conversation with someone in our field on the channel. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself for our audience, for people who might not have heard about you in the past.
Yeah, so I'm William Turner. I'm a founder of William and Friends. We're a digital marketing kind of leaning towards the SaaS-hybrid space right now. I can get more into what I mean by that. But yeah, so started this business a couple years ago. Actually, in March, I officially 2 years ago quit my full-time job and pursued this full-time. And we can kind of get into the backstory of how that all happened. But yeah, that's kind of a base overview. We now are focusing actually on private mental health practices and nonprofits as well. So kind of going in that direction as well as home service businesses. And I also can explain kind of why those two are the industries we're focusing on right now. But yeah, I've had clients in 30 different industries the last couple of years and kind of figuring out how to be an entrepreneur and doing it all. Also, we can kind of get into the mental health side of things too. I'm also an ADHD entrepreneur, which brings a whole another exciting aspect to the whole game. But yeah, that's kind of a base overview.
Wow, that's awesome. Um, I I'm very excited to talk about like your work in the mental health space because that's also what we do. And really just your journey as a marketer. Because I saw that you moved out here to Denver to kind of follow your dreams, same as
hmm
me and a lot of people who work on this channel. So I'm very excited to tap into that. What pulled you towards the profession and the art of marketing in the first place?
Yeah, so I actually have been, I guess, an entrepreneur since I was about 12 years old. My dad taught me how to mow the lawn at a fairly young age. He would, be out there watching me from the porch, kind of just as I perfected my craft. I've always been very meticulous and I guess a little bit, maybe neurotic on things like getting the line straight and stuff like that, when mowing the lawn and all sorts of activities. But, basically kind of took that business from really just kind of mowing my next door neighbor's lawn, all the way to having a small crew by the end of high school. And so never really had what I would say a real job. I never worked at the pizza shop down the street. I never did anything like that. Really just always was kind of, I guess you could say, killing what I eat, or eating what I kill. And, learning how to deal with client relationships and manage projects and payroll and all sorts of things at a fairly young age. And so I went to university for 4 years, go Tar Heels, and in North Carolina is where I'm from, and really was kind of not sure what I wanted to do. To be honest with you, throughout the first few years, I kind of bounced around different majors and things like that. And then I actually I was in Spanish for business as was my minor, and I took a marketing class in Spanish, which is kind of random to be my kind of first foray into the actual like traditional marketing space, and just really really loved it. I loved that there, especially in modern digital marketing, there's this combination of the analytical side of things. I'm a super nerd, so I love numbers and diving into statistics and data and all this stuff. But I also have a pretty strong creative side. I'm a musician in my free time. I need to be creative day to day, or else I feel stagnant and a bit trapped. So the fact that I could be a nerd and also be a creative in the same time, doing the same job, was very enticing to me. So I actually took that Spanish for business minor seriously, and after I graduated, I went to Spain, and found an internship doing what they said. It was just a general business internship, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do when I got there. So I got there, and it was a super small startup, and they basically there were a few other interns that were kind of not really doing much, and I really wanted to make the most out of it. So I sort of asked the my boss, "Hey, what can I do?" And they're like, "Well, I don't know. We don't really have much marketing going on. We're doing a lot of kind of outreach for our sales. Like, how about you kind of figure that out?" So I basically over a summer kind of taught my, I mean, I had some basic prerequisite skills, but what you learn in college is not always what you apply to real life. It was a great school and a great education, but really the biggest education I had was kind of being thrown to the wolves. And I thought, okay, well, what can I do to actually improve stuff? So I tweaked their website quite a bit, learned how to use WordPress, started blogging for them, started getting inbound leads, and really just taught myself SEO over a period of, I guess, 4 months. I think I took more than 20 courses. I was just basically, if I wasn't at the beach playing volleyball, I was working on improving my skill set really. So I took those skills kind of after that summer, was thinking, where do I want to move now? I knew I didn't want to be in North Carolina, just for something new. I love that state, but wanted something new and fresh. And I'd been skiing in Colorado a few times with my family, but never really had been to Denver, and decided, okay, well, there's not really any other cities that kind of tick the boxes of things to do outside, which I really need day to day and or week to week, really, and also kind of a fun city with, a younger crowd and fun things to do. So I decided to move here knowing nobody, with no job. Ended up working at a hotel for a few months while I applied to 300 jobs, kind of the typical sphere of how we do things, and ended up at a really great company called Modally. They were a big HVAC company and was only there for a short period of time, really, before I decided to join the Chamber of Commerce. And I was actually after work, even, and my boss doesn't know this from the last job, but during my lunch hour, I was sometimes skipping lunch and taking that hour that I had for break and going to the Chamber of Commerce for speed networking. And I would talk to as many people as I possibly could and said, "Hey, I'm a young, hungry guy. I've always been an entrepreneur. I really want this to be my future, my path." And I expected it to take a few years before I gained traction and maybe even got my first client. I'd even made a business plan for a marketing agency during my summer. So I always knew as soon as I kind of learned marketing and got the bug for it that I wanted to do this. So I ended up actually after just a few months of that networking, getting a couple clients, and that was enough to pay just my base kind of, I guess, survivor budget for my rent and food pretty much. And uh, the day that I realized that I could cover my base expenses, I quit my job, gave my 2 weeks notice, and yeah, the rest is history, I guess.
Wow. There's so many good things to unpack there. That is so exciting, honestly. Wow. I like resonate with you on so many different levels, and just a couple points that you mentioned about teaching yourself like all these things and like being very disciplined and strict, I would say, with like your schedule of improving yourself as a marketer. I talk about that all the time because when you are out of that college environment, you're no longer surrounded by so and so individuals who are in the field, who are trying to help you develop in the field, or like other marketer students, other professors, other um, professionals in the industry. So you're just out on your own, literally, like you said, like being thrown to the wolves. Um, and also networking, and we'll probably expand a little bit on that, but that's just been something over the last like 3, 4 years I've seen could be like really life-changing. And a
Mhm.
lot of the opportunities that have come up in my life, like they're not really something I applied for on a website or something like that. Someone I know called me up and they asked me if they
Mhm.
want to be a part of it. Um, so, that's really incredible. And I also resonate with you on like moving away from like a place Me and a couple of friends from my college, we like moved out to Denver after evaluating, that it was a great place for young people, a great place to get
Mhm.
started. And myself just like no job out of college, just moved to Denver. So that is, it's just so exciting to meet someone who kind of had a similar journey, and so exciting that to see what you're doing right now. Um, and I also want to emphasize like the importance of just putting yourself out there and seeing what you're able to do before you're trapped in the 9 to 5 grind forever. And I really
Mhm.
applaud you for that, William. Like you're doing fabulous and you're just so inspiring for young people. So what a great way to start to start this conversation. What was something that you didn't expect when you were in your early days as a marketer that kind of caught you off guard?
That's a great question. I would say that, well, I think I have two different answers. It depends on kind of where we're talking about. Because in I think the corporate world is such a different environment from what I'm doing right now. And to be honest, I didn't thrive in the corporate world at all. Especially I learned right as soon as I started my job that I had ADHD my entire life, and I didn't even know I was misdiagnosed previously. So it made a lot of sense when I had a really hard time sitting at a desk for that long, and had a really hard time sitting through meetings, some I didn't care about, things like that. So a lot of what pushed me to be an entrepreneur was definitely kind of just generally me not being good at being an employee, to be honest with you. But I think what surprised me in terms of the actual marketing itself, and I'm going to digress quite a bit, so please feel free and get me back on track. But what surprised me in terms of the actual marketing itself is in college and even in courses, you take 20 HubSpot courses and you learn to do marketing a certain way. And that certain way, they will maybe break it up into B2B versus B2C. But what I've learned the most, especially with working with 30 different businesses, and I've kind of got a crash course in marketing for many different industries in a very short period of time, and I'm handling strategy for every single one of those clients. What surprised me the most is just how nuanced strategy has to be for each individual business, and how what may work by the book is never going to work for a specific type of business. It's just never going to. Um, and you can do, yeah, I think really tactically and strategically, what works for one business does not work for the other one. Even if they're in similar fields, they could both be, I don't know, construction businesses, but if one's commercial and one's residential, it's a completely different marketing strategy. So I think that's been what's been most surprising for me, what's been the biggest learning curve, and also the most fun because I love strategy and I love getting deep into it.
Mhm. That's incredible. And I think you've spoken on this before, but that's what makes William and Friends unique for your clients because you're able to get in there with them and craft all these nuanced items for them. Tell us a little bit about that.
About just how we put strategy together.
Yeah, like how what you're doing is like different from large agencies that are not really doing any of that.
Yeah, I think there's two main things that I've kind of uncovered, and a lot of my clients have worked with big agencies, and there's a reason why they're not anymore. And what I've realized is, and I have a few mentors, and we talk about this a lot too, but more than 50% of what allows you to retain a client is customer service through and through 100%. So, I mean, I have a client who has a few different businesses, and one of those businesses, they work with another marketer who doesn't report at all. They gave him the keys to the Google Analytics and said, "Here, feel free, go and check it out." We, at the end of every single month, write out a very detailed, personalized email with screenshots, with true numbers, with not just here's what went well this month, but here's what didn't, and here's what we're doing to fix that. Where I don't think I know, I've talked to enough other business owners that the agencies that they've worked with, there are obviously many good agencies, but many of them are also based on smoke and mirrors. And they may have the fundamentals down, they may have a system that works in general for most businesses, but they miss the small things, like the reporting, like the making the client feel like you're a part of their business. I want all my clients to feel like I'm an extension of their business, if not their marketing team. So I think that's what really sets it apart. I mean, the truth is that all the information is out there in the world for how to market for any type of business. I mean, if you can put the time in, you can learn how to market. Especially if it's a local service business like we're focusing on now. Anyone can, work their way through a Google Business Profile. but it's when something goes wrong, how do you adapt to it? And how do you let the client know? And how do you let the client know how you're going to fix it? And also make them feel valued? That's the tough part. Where a lot of the bigger agencies, they may have an account manager who might even just be my age, might be a young buck in the field, but they haven't had the exposure to as many different types of problems and have not had to fix so many and not have to put so many fires out. So I think that the more I put fires out, the better I am at handling those when they arise. And you sort of start to see patterns of what's going to go wrong and can almost predict what might happen before it does. And then can be prepared even, with maybe hiring a specialist for someone who knows how to get Google Business Profiles reinstated if they get banned, things like that. So that's obviously something a big agency can do as well. But I think really just the customer service side, and then I think part two to that is just being really agile and flexible with updates to new tech and new marketing strategies. Because as I mentioned before, what you're going to learn in HubSpot and what an agency maybe has been doing for 20 years, let's say in the SEO world, well, AI is changing things, obviously, quite a bit, and being flexible and agile to those changes is what separates a, I guess, smaller, kind of leaner team from what may be a bigger team where the machine is running a certain way and it's really hard to make directional changes and it's really hard to, I guess, update the strategies that you've been using for a while. And for me, the strategy I use for one client is probably going to be only at most 80% the same strategy that I use for the next, even if it's the same exact type of business, in a different geographical region. So, and then we'll update the other business's strategy if it was maybe outdated from even a few months ago.
Mhm.
So it's that constant update and that constant customer service that I really believe is what makes clients stay.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. And like just really putting in the work. I think you said it yourself with like a lot of these places are like smoke and mirrors, which is funny, but it is true. And I think it's just so inspiring for people in our field and who are also young like us who want to go out there, do their own thing, to hear about these things. What was difficult for you in terms of establishing credibility? Or getting that first few clients or building a community around yourself to support you in this entrepreneurship endeavor?
Yeah, so I had a great, very serendipitous first step into this. So at my last full-time job at Modally, and I'll continue to shout them out because they're a great company. I ended up I had a few job offers after in like a span of 1 week. I had none for months, and then in a span of 1 week I had a few job offers. So to anyone who's searching for jobs out there, it will happen. It's all feast or famine. It's usually how things go in life, at least for me. But I ended up going with Modally because of my first boss there, Kirill. I've mentioned him on a few podcasts. He's awesome. We still keep in touch. He had, I think, something like 20,000 LinkedIn followers, was posting consistently, clearly was a thought leader in the space. And I thought, I want to go work for this guy. Even if the other jobs paid me more, which they were going to, I thought, okay, what's the opportunity cost here of not working for a guy like him that's going to help me stay up to date on these cutting edge techs and all this sort of thing. And then after a few months, he ended up taking another job opportunity. So I was left with a new boss who was also great, but I managed to keep in touch with Kirill, and he asked me one day, "What do you want to do?" Now that I'm not your boss, and you can be totally honest with me, about your like future career, not like do you want to stay here for 5 years, but what do you actually want to do with the next 5 years of your life? And I said, I want to be a freelancer and eventually start an agency. And he said, okay, cool. So probably 4 months after that, he reached out to me and he said, "Hey man, I have this friend Jesse who needs some help. He's a solopreneur right now. He started an agency a couple years ago, maybe a year ago at that point, and he needs help with an email campaign. He doesn't do email. I know you've been doing quite a bit of email campaigns, email marketing for Modally. Would you mind helping him out?" I said, yes, please. I would love that experience. So I did a project for Jesse for a company called SciTech Edit. Also, shout them out too. They're awesome. They do scientific proofreading for journal articles across the globe. And did that project for Jesse, and the client really enjoyed talking with me. And I guess the account management I was doing with them and the campaign went well. So Jesse ended up taking me on for 10 hours a week on top of my full-time job. So I actually still do projects for Jesse to this day. And we still talk weekly as kind of a mentor-mentee relationship, which is blossoming into kind of a really fun, I guess, peer-to-peer relationship as well. He still has way more experience than me, so I'm certainly still his mentee. But so I really got that nice kind of entryway into it, where I already had 10 hours of work per week in terms of getting started. So I like to mention that whenever someone asks me, I certainly want to give credit to that situation because I got lucky, truly. I already had kind of this foray. I already had a bit of secured income, so to speak. Certainly not enough to help me survive, but enough to give me a little bit of boost. But to answer your question, I would say the hardest part about the building credibility thing was, you know, I think it was more in my head. I think the imposter syndrome was what held me back more than the actual reality of the situation. Because I thought, well, I'm super young. Is anyone gonna believe me? Is anyone gonna trust me with their money? And I charged quite a bit less than I do now back a couple years ago, so it wasn't a huge investment for many of these businesses, but it still felt like I had skin in the game with them. So I would say getting over the imposter syndrome is the actual answer to your question. Once I got in a room with people and started talking with them, and I realized just how much I knew about marketing after only a few years of being in the space, because I was hands-on with so many different campaigns, even internally at a big, a big company, big corporation, I still had so much hands-on experience and had worked at a couple startups and also that big corporate environment. So I felt like I had a few touch points with some different types of businesses. So I think really as soon as I got in the room and started talking to people, it felt great. To be totally honest with you, the first couple of networking events I went to, I didn't even talk to anybody. I was so anxious that I basically just got there, I scanned the room and went, and left. So the imposter syndrome, the anxiety was very strong the first couple. And then I made a goal, okay, I'm gonna talk to one person. So I went and I talked to one person. And then I went, that wasn't so bad. I got a new contact. That person ended up being a client a few months later, actually. It wasn't immediate, but a few months later, it ended up being a client. And we still keep in touch to today. It's Sterling Voth of Voth Agency. I'll shout out all these people because they're so amazing. But yeah, so uh, it was really all in my head, to be totally honest with you. I knew what I was doing. I know way better now what I'm doing for sure after a couple of years and all this experience with all these companies. But yeah, I think really the hardest part was just getting over that initial mental hurdle. And trusting myself and I think as soon as I got started with those clients, we jived immediately and we started seeing results pretty quickly and it felt really good. So yeah, and well, now client acquisition is a whole nother ball game because I'm trying to step away, not away from the networking, but figure out my own sort of client acquisition engine. So I would say it's probably a bigger issue now as I try to scale than it was when I was initially getting started.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that with me. That resonates a lot. Yesterday I was giving a lecture at the Leeds Business School and someone asked me, what was difficult for you in like building confidence when existing in spaces where you don't have training in. And
Hmm.
they were referring to like podcasting, presenting, and I told them like the problem was actually like in my head for the most part. And once my producer like threw me in front of the camera and was like, "You have to do it. The person is right there." It was just like a natural flow from there. And then
Hmm.
every now and then, like when I step back from it from a few months, it gets very difficult to like get back in there because like I have to again like bring myself up and give myself that confidence that this is my job. I have to do this. I've
Hmm.
done this before, and give myself a little pep talk. And then 30 minutes in, 20 minutes in the conversation, it all comes back to you. So I'm really glad we get a chance to highlight that and also to know I'm not alone in that journey, you know.
Definitely not.
Um,
Definitely not.
yeah, and even with networking, like there's been so many times like I would just go alone to like all these events.
Hmm.
Um And once the first person will like start talking to you or you start talking to them, then everything kind of fades away. And it's just, you're with people, you're like talking to people, you're making those
Mhm.
connections. Before we move on from like that networking, was there something that helped you stay in touch with people after making that initial connection?
Yeah, just effort. It's as simple as that. You just have to be willing to, well, and now I put them in a CRM. I'm much more organized now, but back in the day, I just had like basically a mental list of all the people. Oh, I met him, he was great. And I think it's really just, I also went in way too aggressively. My first few networking events, it was, I'm hungry for clients. Let's get clients right now. Come on, let's do it. Let's get business. Let's do it.
Hmm.
And now I take networking events as I may get a client from this, and that'd be great. But I would rather make 10 really awesome connections with people who I can keep in touch with, and they may be mentors. We may be able to help each other solve problems. Because the truth is, all these networking events I'm going to, they're all, well, mostly other entrepreneurs. So there's that kinship that we can get right away. But I actually just started with a new client last month that I met at a networking event a year and a half ago. And it wasn't the right time then. But we stayed in touch. And he was in another networking group, so I was kind of asking him questions about that one, and we just, I don't know, just talked about random stuff in life and our other networking groups and business in general, and probably stayed in touch. Maybe had 4 or 5 phone calls for, I don't know, half an hour or less over the last year and a half. And a few months ago, he called me up while I was at the same desk, and he said, "Hey man, I am breaking away from my current business. I want to start my own thing, and I want it to be radically different." He's a financial therapist, and it's a totally different way to do finance that's very compassionate and empathetic, and it felt so right to me. And it was an immediate, easy yes. But because we built up that trust, and I told him about my business and my struggles and my wins, and we'd shared that and built a deeper connection, our connection as a client vendor relationship is so much stronger as well. So it just takes the effort. It just takes meeting the right people. And sometimes people won't respond to you. I've had, I mean, probably most of the emails I've sent out after networking events saying, "Hey man, great to meet you. I'd love to meet up for coffee in a couple weeks," whatever it may be. People, of course, will assume you have an agenda. And at the beginning, I did. And I guess to some degree, I still do. I want to be authentic to that. I mean, obviously, you're going to networking to make these connections, and whether it's a new client or just a general relationship that will hopefully be mutually beneficial, at least down the line. That's really the goal. So it just takes the effort. It really just does. And you just have to call people, send emails, even call people in the middle of the day and just say if they pick up, if they pick up, if they don't, they don't. And say, "Hey man, just wanted to talk to you. Wondering how business is going." It doesn't even have to be for the purpose of outreach for new clients. It can just be keeping those connections. And to me, I've realized just how valuable those are outside of just trying to get new business, every single time I go to a networking event. So even getting on podcasts. I mean, I've met podcasters that I've been able to get on their podcast. And I mean, yeah, really anything can come out of these events, and you just have to keep an open mind.
Definitely. Yeah, that's really valuable. And it's also something that I've been learning slowly over the years about, how some things take years to manifest, but
Hmm.
most of the time they do, like, they come to fruition. And in a way that I might not have even expected when I made that connection in the first place. So I just really wanted to emphasize on that and also get your viewpoint on it. So you told me, like you started entrepreneurship from such a young age, and your mentality at that time. I have a belief that people with a mentality like that, like work forward, kind of want to do their own thing. You really see them excel throughout life and carry that on for the rest of their lives. But what is your mentality when it comes to work and growth?
So I think a lot of this, and I'll share this because I'm on a mental health podcast, but I think a lot of the growth throughout entrepreneurship has been parallel, if not exponentially increased by personal growth through my mental health journey, through getting to know myself, through understanding what I do and don't want out of my life. And that directly impacts the type of businesses that I choose to work with now. And that directly impacts the type of people that I wanted to hire and work with as well. So I don't think there's a short answer to this question. But I think that really my mental health journey and my entrepreneurship journey have shaped themselves, have shaped, I guess, have, I don't know, what's the right word I'm looking for here? They've coexisted and also have worked with each other to shape who I am and who my business or what my business looks like. So I think the mindset, the mentality has I mean, it's a growth mindset. It really is. It's a 1% better every day. It's a I know I'm not going to be perfect every day. It's a I know there's going to be a mistake here and there. And how do you manage that? And my dad always said it's not about the mistake you make, it's about how you recover from it. And that's been a huge thing for me too, is giving myself the grace to potentially make a mistake, disrupt something, whatever it may be. And I mean, it happens fairly often. And I'll just tell the client, I mean, it's usually a small thing. It's fortunately nothing catastrophic has ever happened in the last couple of years. But you know, it might be like a spelling error in a newsletter or something like that, which just happens. It shouldn't. We have Grammarly, but you know, even if it's an employee, or you know, one of my contractors making doing that, it's like you have to take responsibility for that too. So I think it's taking radical responsibility over the business, over our wins and our failures, and also radical responsibility over my day to day and my mental health. And if I don't feel like I have any energy one day, realizing that I have the flexibility to just not work that much and take care of myself. And then typically, if I do that, the next day I'll have so much energy, I'll work for like 12, 16 hours straight sometimes and just feel like a machine. So I think it's following my energy trends and just taking radical responsibility over every aspect of the business. And it can't be anyone else's fault.
Mhm. Wow, that's awesome. Um, you spoke a little bit about your passion for art, for music, for getting up in the mountains and doing some activities. Tell
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about, how those things have played a role in your mental health journey, in your wellness journey, and kind of how you have embraced them the more you understood how they supported you.
They're everything to me. I would say the only other aspect there would be the relationships I have with my friends and family are equally important to my mental health. But for me, it's about, and I was actually talking about, I was actually jamming with my friends last night, a couple of my buddies. We were making some music, producing, screwing around, and later than I'd like to admit. But you know, those times are when am I ever gonna in my life be able to get that time back to do those sorts of things? So, you know, if I need to sleep in an hour for this morning, it's worth it. So, I think well, and that kind of speaks to it as well. Is these things are crucial to me being good at my job as well. Because if I don't play guitar for a few days in a row, I can tell. If I don't move, if it's going to the gym or going for a hike or skiing, for a few days, I can tell. I feel it in my body. I feel drained. I feel totally lethargic. This plays into the ADHD as well. I have to find the right level of stimulation throughout the week, or else I either crash. If I have too much rest, I crash. If I do too much, I crash. So it's a bit of a balance. But in terms of the hobbies, in terms of music, art, all of that, it's and I've discovered it's things that I can get into a flow state where my mind shuts down a little bit in a positive way, where I don't have, because typically when I'm working, I have one or two songs playing in my head at the same time. I'm thinking about, did I eat breakfast this morning? I'm thinking about another project while I'm working on one project. I'm thinking about all these sort of things. And if I don't take the time to do things that get me into a flow state relatively quickly, it's harder for me to get into a flow state while I'm working as well. Because maybe I feel like I don't have, like I haven't taken care of the creative side of my brain. And obviously, of course, I'm doing creative stuff throughout my day to day as I market and create, come up with strategies and things like that. But yeah, it really is so crucial to my mental health, how I perform at my job. And it's very, very evident to me when I don't take advantage of these tools that I have, because it reflects itself in my day to day. It's harder for me to wake up in the morning. It's harder for me to get going with work. It's harder for me to motivate doing anything if I don't have these passions that help me moving forward. And it's such a balance. And last March, I had not hired quickly enough, and I had onboarded too many clients at once. And going to the gym felt like a chore. It was not something I was prioritizing. I probably didn't play guitar for like 3 weeks straight. I was seeing my girlfriend less. I was seeing my friends less. I had to deliver, so I was putting my head down and getting to work, but I burned out so quickly. And so the first thing I did was hire someone who was really good, and he's still my number two guy, and he's amazing. So that's been a great benefit for me. And then I also just realized how important all those things are to me.
Beautiful. Yeah. Human relationships and connections are just so important. And you brought it up by, mentioning that you do all these activities with your friends, with your family, and dedicate some time to that. And you also saw firsthand kind of how things start to unravel when you don't do that. Do you think that's something a lot of entrepreneurs like struggle with, like making time for themselves?
100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I've been fortunate enough through networking and also just through a few friends and random acquaintances, have met quite a few entrepreneurs. And I mean, I will not name drop him because this is going to be too too personal, but I have a good friend now, and his agency is doing over $2 million a year, and he feels trapped by it. And I mean, he's personally making more money than most people do, across portion of their lifetime, every single year, and kind of an average salary every single month. But we talk a lot about his biggest goal now is not how do I make more money, it's how do I put some better systems in place where I'm not having to work this much and put this much mental energy towards it. And I would say what's true for me and what's true for a lot of entrepreneurs too is that probably the hardest part in terms of the work-life balance is that it's not only when you're working that work is taking control of your life to some extent. So, and I've gotten better at this now, especially now that I have a really good team that's helping me take care of some of these things, so they're not all on my plate. But it's I can work for 8 hours a day, but I'm thinking about work for 4 hours after that as well. So when I had the 9 to 5, of course there were some projects that took mental energy after I left work, but for the most part, I got to work, I did my work, I left, and it was okay, great, now I have this free time. Well, free time when you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're working with multiple clients, you're thinking, oh well, oh wait, well, was that strategy perfectly aligned with what their goals are? Well, actually, should I have changed that wording on that blog post? Should we have linked something different there? Should we have changed the call to action to this? So it's that mental energy that's taken up outside of the actual working hours too, that I think is the biggest challenge for a lot of us. It's not just
Mhm.
making time for the things we love, but it's how do you shut that part of your brain off enough where you can actually enjoy those things outside of work. And that I think is a challenge that I don't think most of us have an answer to be honest with you. And a lot of that is, are you passionate about your business? Yes. So are you probably going to be thinking about it outside of the working hours? Yes. So I don't think it's all negative because it shows that you care about these things. But I mean, there's been plenty of nights where I end up, I've gotten in bed at 11, I'm ready to go and put myself to sleep. And then if half an hour goes by and I'm like, all right, I can't just not do this right now. And I'll pull up my laptop and get to work. And some nights, my first year, that would mean sometimes I'd work until 3 a.m. Because I just got into a project and I had this great idea. And it was like, I can't just write this down. I'm not going to have the vision for it. And I've stopped doing that because I realized how detrimental it is in the long run. And sometimes those projects would have mistakes. But I think it's the round the clock mental energy that it takes is probably the most difficult challenge that I've gotten better at, and I hope that I will continue to. But it's certainly something that I mean, if you have an idea that pops in your head, it's hard for you to let it go, if you care about that client or that project.
Definitely, definitely. It's definitely like an evolving evolving process where like you have to identify things that are working, things that are not working, and you get better at
Hmm.
it through time. It reminded me while you were speaking, my dad's also he's been an entrepreneur as long as I've been alive. He owns a furniture and metalworks business. And he would just say, like, he's like, you can't, I don't even sleep anymore. Like, because he's constantly thinking about that. And he's like, you guys should sleep while you're still kids or something like that.
Hmm.
And like while we're talking to him or something, he'll just like zone out and he's like probably doing like calculations in his head.
Yeah.
So it's something I've seen my whole life, but it's definitely something that everyone like tries to get better and better at. Were there any like tools or softwares that helped you with managing like multiple different projects when you started working with a larger clientele?
Yeah, so there's two that come to mind first, and I think there's plenty of options for project management software. We've chosen Asana. It's simple, fairly easy to use. I even actually used it at my last full-time job. I've tried a few different softwares like Todoist. We're probably going to move to ClickUp eventually once we have probably 50 plus clients. But that's been a huge thing. And not just for my own brain dump and making sure that if I have that bright idea, I make some quick notes about it, ensure that I have the vision set. Then I wait till the next morning and think, okay, is this still a good idea? That's a big part of it too, is sitting on ideas and thinking, okay, was this the right one or was it just your night brain talking? So I think that, yeah, Asana has been huge. And then I wish they would sponsor me, but this tool has changed my life. It's a Chrome extension called Workona, and there's a free version. I have too many projects to use that. I think it's like maybe 10, $20 a month. I don't know, something fairly inconsequential in terms of the tech stack that we have, unfortunately, now. Um, but yeah, that allows me to have workspaces. So instead of having a million tabs open, I can have a million tabs open, but they're all in the background and they're organized by client. So it pulls up when you click on the Workona icon on the top left to your Chrome browser. On the left side, you have a toolbar and you have all of your projects. And then when you X out of that project, it shuts down, doesn't use any RAM on your hard drive. And then when you pull up the project, all the tabs that you're using for that previous work session are still there. So I keep open most of the tools that I'm using per client in there, so I'm not having to constantly re-log into stuff, not having to constantly find, okay, where was that login to this thing, what tool was I using last week for this client or whatever it looks like. And I can also share that with my team as well. So we have shared tabs across our Chrome browsers. So my I don't know, web designer doesn't one of my web designers doesn't have to ask for where's the WordPress login to this client. I just say click into that client XYZ's tab space and you can find the WP admin. So it's helped a lot with efficiency, not just for project management, but also for general organization. So I would say Asana and Workona, please sponsor me. I love you guys.
Yes, please sponsor William, y'all. And we're gonna be looping them into this conversation and letting them know. And I'm really glad you shared those. And I feel like they're very helpful. They're gonna be very helpful to people who try to experiment with them, including myself. And when you spoke about just like multiple tabs and logging in your team, I was like, yes, I have those problems all the time. So that's really incredible. I want to also ask you, you told me at the beginning that you're looking to move into nonprofit spaces, working with organizations around mental health and wellness. Tell me a little bit
Mhm.
about that, like what inspired you to start going that route, and what are you looking forward to in the coming months and years with that?
Yeah, so it really was, I would say probably around August, we realized that through a couple mentors and just generally having experience with lots of different businesses, we realized, okay, there is going to come a point where we can no longer do a 100% custom strategy for every single different type of business and every single different, just like you can't offer everything to everyone forever. Some agencies do, and they excel at it, but it's operationally very, very challenging. So we we're kind of looking through what are industries that might match up? What industries have we worked with so far? What have we not? What, you know, verticals do we want to explore? What businesses would have budgets that would be adequate for us to put together really badass projects? And what industries do we know we could have quick success with? And also, what are we personally passionate about? So it's kind of the intersection of those few factors. And then one of my good friends reached out to me and said, "Hey, I have someone looking for marketing services. They'd love to talk to you." So they pointed me in that direction, and we started talking. And they're a nonprofit mental health and addiction prevention center. And funny enough, we're actually still in the closing process. There's certainly the board of directors and everything makes things a bit more challenging. And I will not name drop this business because it's confidential at this time. But throughout working with them, the gears started turning. And even just in the planning process and kind of because we've been sort of planning the project as we close this sale because there's a lot of moving parts. And I just realized how lit up I was by the idea of working with them. It just felt so good. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, uh, I truly, the mental health system saved my life. I probably would not be here today if I didn't have a great therapist in college. Truly. I was in a pretty dark time in college throughout, and fortunately, I'm now thriving in a great space. Still have my days, but I thought, well, if I can work with a great organization or hopefully many down the line that are helping people find the right help that they need, that is so fulfilling to me, the idea of that. And obviously, any new client I work with, it's exciting because it's a new foray, it's a new venture, it's a new experience, it's a new opportunity for growth and more wins and more failures to learn from as well. But nothing has lit me up like the fire inside of me, like the prospect of working for mental health in the mental health age, really health and wellness in general, whatever that looks like for people. But yeah, I mean, taking care of my body and my brain has become such a crucial part of my life, as I think it should for everybody's. And yeah, these businesses, I know I can help. All the strategies that I've gotten really good at thus far work. We have a system now that's actually HIPAA approved, and we can use to help them manage client load and follow up with clients and all those sort of things as well. So a lot of what I'm doing right now is actually my LinkedIn outreach is less, hey, I'm looking for clients. It's, hey, I'm looking for what are your pain points right now? How can I help you? Or even if you're not the right person. So I've gotten some really good responses from mental health providers about the issues they have and where they're finding leads right now. And someone asked me this week, I'm not sure how I get a client wait list. I was like, well, and client follow-up's really hard. I was like, well, we have a system that automates all of that and makes it really easy for you. So it's 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 really I'm really excited to dive into. And then the other side, our other kind of industry is the home services. As my business was landscaping, so I'm really passionate about that as well. If I hadn't hurt my back, I might still be a landscaper, actually. And using all these marketing strategies to do that, I just so happened to have had slipped a couple discs in my lower back while I was mowing a lawn one day, or I don't know, I think I was maybe building a garden bed for somebody or something like that. And um, I ended up injuring myself. So yeah, those two industries really light a fire inside of me and make me really excited. And I want to help people that have been in a similar situation to me, either through the entrepreneurship journey of being a home service provider, because I know how difficult that can be, and then also for the mental health space, because I want to be able to help people that are passionate about helping people. It's as simple as that.
Incredible. It's amazing to hear that, you got the support that you needed when you needed it, and now it's inspired you to uplift people who are doing that, and then use your skills that you've really honed over the years to amplify such an important thing in our time. And I feel like me and you are like breaking barriers in marketing by, entering this space and like marketers just assume they have to like work in corporate spaces since, we went to business school and stuff like that. That was something I myself like kind of had to restructure my thought process around. So it's
Hmm.
very exciting that you're doing that. And you also shared with me that William and friends, you're working with the SaaS hybrid space. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, that's that system I was just referring to. So we use a system that allows us to connect really awesome things like voice AI agents for if a business isn't there to pick up or is just too busy to pick up the phone. Because typically, especially with local services, if you're not, many people like to just click that phone button on the Google Business profile, and if you don't pick up, they're likely going to go to the next result and call them. And if they pick up, you lose that job. So whether that's a roofer, plumber, landscaper, or a mental health provider, it's the same story. People are looking for, if they're looking for a local business, they know what they need and they need it now or next week, or in the very near future. So they're going to make that call. They're going to learn about the business, and we can program voice AI agents. It's kind of the first step towards that, where it can get their phone number and their name, and we can fill it with a knowledge base of that business's information, so it knows all the FAQs. We work with the owner of the business to see, okay, what are all the questions you typically get when someone answers the phone that at this point are just really annoying you to answer over and over again, or just maybe are not as good of a use of your time. And obviously, the goal is not to trick anyone into thinking that they're talking to a real person, but that bot does have most of the answers, if not all. And if they don't have an answer, we learn from that because we can see the call summary and the call transcript and add that FAQ as something that that bot couldn't answer. So it's a constant improvement process as well for that. But that system then feeds either those leads for jobs, if it's a home service business, or the clients for a mental health space or health and wellness provider in general, into their CRM, and then we can set up endless automations for that. Where if the owner of the business or admin or whoever is in charge of that system, typically it's usually an administrator, um, clicks and drags that contact, that lead, that client over into the next stage, it triggers a whole new host of automations and follow-ups and all those sorts of things. So it's it's its main purpose is filling the leaks that we've found over the years. And there have been so many times where I've had a client after a month say, "Well, I didn't get any phone calls this month." And then I look at their Google Business profile and they had 7 this week. Okay, well, you probably saw some random number and didn't pick it up. So all of those people were looking for your services probably just about right now, and you missed it. And it's not your fault. You're a busy business owner, but you shouldn't have to, with today's modern technology, it's getting better and better and better, have to answer every single one of those small questions. And of course, if the person says, I don't want to talk to a bot, it redirects them to the business owner's phone number. And if they don't pick up, at least we'll get their contact information so the business owner can follow up with them later. By that point, there's a good chance they've missed the job, unless it's like a really big project. Let's say like a full-scale landscaping job could be tens of thousands of dollars, in which case people are generally shopping around. They're not going with the first option they find. But there's nuances to it, obviously, like there is with any strategy as we've discussed. But that's the kind of the SaaS that we're implementing for businesses, so that, and we call it the William and Friends Growth Portal. It's backed by Go High Level. We just kind of set it up custom, for clients. I'm not sure if you've heard of that tech before, but it's becoming pretty common. And we can, it's just, the opportunities are endless. We can use it. They have a social planner built in. I mean, even down to like QR code creators. I used that. I did a talk on Wednesday, to a bunch of laundromat owners and had made a QR code with that. And like, it's just amazing that the tech we have now, and we're trying to take advantage of all of it that we can that actually moves the needle. So yeah, that system has been really great we started implementing that in October, and the clients that are using it so far are absolutely loving it. So I used it myself as well, actually, for all of my lead management. Um, and yeah, it's just like the opportunities to are endless with this new tech. And we don't really have to use like Zapier for Zaps or anything like that, or like all automation is built in. So I'm in love with it. I want them to sponsor me as well. And yeah, it's been really great to be able to fill those leaks, because it doesn't matter how great your marketing is, if the sales process is broken, the business owner is not going to see the benefit of it. I mean, we can track leads all day long, but my goal now is to get as close to the bottom of the funnel as possible with new clients and also with existing ones so that we can manage and have more access into what's actually working. Because we can obviously tag, well, this lead came from the website form from this specific page. This lead came from the Google Business Profile, so we can see what services people are looking for and where and why and when, and have a lot more visibility into that. So it doesn't just help the client; it helps me as a marketer as well to improve our own strategies and also prove our value to our clients much more easily. Because if we can say you have 7 phone calls all day long, but if that can't be tied to revenue, because sometimes it's just impossible to attribute that. Um, then I mean, what are they really paying for if they're not getting more revenue from us, to be honest with you? I mean, of course, there's brand awareness and there's all those additional things that are the soft benefits, but we're really, really revenue and conversion focused at this point in our business. And because every dollar counts for these business owners, really. Even if you have $1 million budget, I mean, a couple grand a month is still a couple grand a month that you could be spending elsewhere if it's not on something that's really driving the needle for you. So I'm very sensitive to that and really trying to work hard on, okay, how do we provide the most value for clients? And we're not just producing blog posts and hoping for the best. We're tracking it all the way down to the CRM level and where is this actually going for a client? Like what is all this for, really?
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I work in student services and at my college, and I'm just thinking I need this automation in my life right now. But you bring up a really good point about like the end goal being revenue generation and conversions. I'm currently pursuing my master's in marketing, and then whenever we have a chance to like do research or write a paper on some topics, I'm always like looking at conversion and like seeing how we can actually bring the discussion more towards that because there's just so many concepts in our field and there's so
hmm
much of the basic work that still needs to be done with like most organizations, like you said, the blog post, the newsletter, the social posts, but how are we actually focusing on conversion and revenue? Because that's what they care about at the end of the day. That's what any
hmm
business cares about, rightfully so. Um, but I'm really glad you highlight that because I feel like it kind of gets lost in all, just because it's like a large profession that can go in so many different directions.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's so important that we talk about conversion and focus on it. Um, so that's very exciting. Do you have like any words of advice for young marketers who are breaking into the field, making a name for themselves?
Yeah, I think I've touched on a lot of these things so far. Educate yourself. Funny enough, I would say I've learned more from Reddit than any of the 20 HubSpot courses I did. There is r/agency newbies, I think it's called. And I spend an embarrassingly large amount of time. Well, not embarrassing. Well, okay, whatever. You can determine how you want with that. But my new doom scrolling is looking through learning from other marketers. What are these people doing? They're being very honest on Reddit. It's why I love the platform. Is there, especially in a group like r/agency, of course, there's some flexers and there's some people that you can see are a bit on the BS spectrum, but um, most of them are trying to help other marketers. And if I have an idea that feels fresh and exciting to me, I will typically look it up and see have people tried this before and was it a bunch of mumbo jumbo? Is this tool a waste of time? Is it a bunch of gimmicky marketing, whatever? Um, so I kind of gut check myself a lot with that. I would say that would be the first is just educate yourself. And second would be find a mentor or a million if you can. And there was a study that I read the other day, and there was a like a startup tank, one of those kind of incubators, and they ran an experiment, and they had two groups, and one had one mentor, for, I guess it was a period of 6 months or something, that they listened to all the ideas that one person had. And then they had a second group which brought in a new mentor every single week with new ideas and new ways of doing things. And what they found is that the group that had multiple different influences, their businesses took off way faster and way more successfully than the group that just had one. So the reason being is because they were stress testing new ideas constantly. So that's a big thing we try and do. And I try and not do it with clients' accounts, but especially with our own business, we're constantly stress testing new things. So I would say stress test, which is a part of educating yourself, and then find as many people who are better than you at what you do as possible. And that's true with hiring as well. I only hire people that are better than me at this thing. And I think the first time it was probably an ego punch because it was like, okay, well, now I have to trust this person like to be better than me at these things. And now I'm surrounded by people who are better than me at many of these individual functions, and it's amazing. And they're to some degree the people that work for William and Friends are sometimes mentors of my own in some ways. I mean, my number two guy, Amaury, he's my lead strategist, and he talks me off ledges all the time. So I think having people around you that could talk you off a ledge and like, I'm really pissed off today. Can we talk this out? Like, all this sort of thing. Like, I'm really frustrated. I woke up to an annoying email or whatever it may be. So surrounding yourself with mentors, and whether it be colleagues or if you're starting an agency, contractors or W-2s, whatever it looks like, that are going to not be yes men, are going to push you in the right direction, are going to have your back when you need it. Um, I think something that people miss when they say find mentors is how to actually do that. So I think I've talked to people and I'm like, you need to get a mentor, man. And they're like, well, I don't know how to mentor my life. Like, I mean, my dad's a great, my mom's a great mentor, but like, I don't know how do I find someone in my industry? And the answer is you got to go to networking events, or you got to cold DM people and say, hey, I'm looking to break into this space. You've been in it for 25 years and you run a successful business, whether it's corporate or agency world. I would love some help in navigating this big, scary new frontier. And what I've found is that people are so willing to share their expertise down to the minutia, down to exactly. I mean, my friend who's doing over a couple $1 million a year, we'll sit down and he'll just show me, here's exactly how my Asana is set up for my 20 full-time employees. And it allows me to see a vision for the future. And I don't know, on days where I feel like this may be too much, I don't know, should I go back to corporate? It usually lasts about 5 minutes, that feeling. But then I immediately just text the mentor. I'm like, hey, man, I'm feeling like this. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like that every day, dude. I mean, like, this is like going to come up, and you just have to keep pushing and keep learning and keep stress testing things and don't expect everything to work. So, yeah, that's my answer to that question.
Yeah, yeah, very, very, very well put. And I'll even add to that because I feel like I've been in similar situations where I'm talking to people in industries where I'm looking at. And a couple of things I'll just emphasize that you've already mentioned, but like reaching out to people directly, most of the times, like it's insane how excited and welcome that most people are to your questions. And it doesn't really matter if they're like super popular, have like 30,000, LinkedIn followers. It literally doesn't
Hmm.
matter. Like you'll reach out and a lot of people are just excited to help other people, but also
Hmm.
help other young people in their industry. And it's really unique. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. And I also want to add like something that's been very impactful to me is different like virtual events. 100% like in-person events are like the best way to network, but nowadays like I usually just go for the American Marketing Associations. Like they have a bunch of free events spread throughout the year. The Sports Business Journal does like virtual events every Wednesday or every other Wednesday, and they bring in these people who there's literally no other way I would be in a room with these people. They're like director of marketing for X sports team or for this whole league. And then they're just there dropping their LinkedIn, connecting with you afterward, replying to your message, sending you a message saying, thanks for listening, thanks for attending. So that's just been so impactful to just like see that. And that's something I hope to do more and like gain those like helpful things from them as well. So that's been very exciting. And I want to ask you like where can people find you? Tell us about your website. Like do you put any of your music on online? Like what what's going on?
Yeah, so on the business side of things, I'm fairly active on LinkedIn these days. Do quite a bit of posting, whether personal events or kind of, I guess, just helpful tips for different businesses. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I think, search my name, search William and Friends. William Turner is my full name. If you search William and Friends or marketing, you'll probably find me. There's a lot of William Turners, but only one William and Friends, I think, as far as I know. And LinkedIn will be great. My website is williamandfriends.com, A-N-D spelled out. We're constantly updating that to like better fit the services we're offering now. So I don't know, it's a little bit outdated, but at least it looks really pretty. And certainly has some of the case studies we've done and stuff too. So that'd be probably the easiest way to find me. And yeah, always want to talk to anybody, especially young entrepreneurs. In person, you can find me actually next week on Wednesday. Me and a couple buddies and I have started our own networking group out of a bit of frustration with some of the networking we've done so far and finding a lot of people who are like I was in the first few, only there to sell their stuff and solicit and not really there to make connections. Well, we're trying to kind of, I guess, disrupt the networking scene in Denver. And we've started a group that we're aiming for people 25 to 35 to come by. It's going to be at Improper City last Wednesday of every month. You can find that on Meetup. I've posted on LinkedIn. I'm probably going to again today about the event. I guess this won't be posted today, but yeah. But I don't know when you post these, but by the time, yeah, people on Wednesdays at the end of every month, we will be at Improper City from 6:30 to 8. And it'll be not just entrepreneurs, but people from any industry. It's really if you're looking to move upward in your career, it's called Upward Denver, then yeah, we invite you. Please come. We have way more signups than we thought we would so far. I think we have 80 something people have RSVP'd, which is nuts for our first event. I don't know how that happened, but clearly there's a need for it because young people are looking for whether you end up with new friendships or new business opportunities or whatever else. That's really our goal is to just have a good time and meet with a bunch of people who are passionate about their careers as well and are in Denver. And our whole shtick is that you shouldn't have to move to, I guess, a quote unquote tier one city like New York or LA to make awesome business connections. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here for real quick.
No, no, that's
You can
absolutely
also,
amazing.
on a personal side, you can find my music on Spotify. Most of it's unserious. I have a hard time finishing songs, so I recently, I guess a few months ago, just posted a bunch of like half-finished things or just like ideas that I'd put together that just sort of I don't know. It was kind of like a fun thing. I have one serious song in there. It's called Sweet Echoes. I think I put that on Spotify like in like 2020 during COVID. I produced every single day during COVID when we had that time off school. But yeah, so you can find me. It's William on Spotify. If you search Sweet Echoes William, you'll find my profile. As I said, it's nothing too serious. I just do it for fun. I don't have any aspirations to be a famous musician, but it makes me happy and keeps me grounded and safe in my mental space. So yeah, I love it. But aside from that, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Incredible. Y'all heard it here. Upward Denver, last Wednesday of the month. William, I have to say it's pretty on brand for you to have your own like networking thing. I'm
I
excited for this.
thank you. Yeah, please show up. I would love to have you there, Naomi. That'd be
Yeah, I'm
awesome.
gonna pop up either like this month or next month. I'll definitely pop up. And I'm downtown on Wednesdays anyway, so this will be perfect. You guys
Awesome.
can't make connections while you're, not online or like not talking to people. So come out there if you're in Denver, Boulder, Even if you're a little south in Colorado Springs, that's okay. Make the drive. It'll be really fun. And yeah, I'm really excited to check out your music too. It's great. I love that like most of us are like multifaceted individuals. Um,
Mhm.
and sometimes people will only get to see that like professional side of us. So it's just very exciting to share ourselves as like whole, well-rounded human beings.
Mhm.
Well, this question for you, this is for myself because I just finished watching Mad Men and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Are there any shows that you enjoy watching that are like somewhat connected to our field?
That's a great question. I would say, well, Mad Men, I hope is not very connected to what I do day to day. I've watched some of
Just
that,
on
and
the
it's
advertising side.
yeah, okay, yeah, maybe the passion for advertising, maybe not all the other yeah, delinquency that goes on in that show. But yeah, I don't know. I've rewatched Silicon Valley a few times. It's like adjacent. It's in the business world. I just think it's hilarious. And I love that show. So I don't know. Not really a great answer to your question. It's not super up into the marketing space, but in terms of like how businesses work and all of that, I think it's fascinating. They actually contracted a bunch of real CEOs and people that work in Silicon Valley to make sure that show is 100% accurate, aside from just the humor aspect of it. So that's really cool, I think. And it appeals to my very nerdy side as well. But yeah, I think that's a really hilarious and awesome show. I'll shout that one out. But I don't know. I watch a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot of I read a lot of Reddit stuff in terms of like the marketing side of things, but not necessarily anything like that. But I want to shout out one more thing too. If you search Willie's Plates on Instagram, I also have a really big passion for cooking, and post some recipes and stuff there. So yeah, feel free to check that out too.
Yum! You're like so multifaceted. I'm gonna put all the links in the description below, so everyone can get a chance to check them out. But this has been absolutely incredible. William, you are just, breaking so many norms, and myths, busting so many myths, and it's just been an incredible time to have you here on our podcast. Thank you for accepting our invite and thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you. I've had a great time. I'll mention the last thing that I've on this podcast because I sent a cold DM to Z. So don't hesitate to do that ever because you may not get a response. You may get someone telling you to buzz off. But I mean, I am on this podcast because I sent a cold DM to Zeke because he looked like a super interesting guy. So yeah, and a couple weeks later, and now we're here. So yeah, it's been really exciting and very fun. And thank you so much for your time, Naomi.
That's amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much for, finding us and reaching out. I'm so honored that we were able to do this. And hopefully down the line, a couple of years, we'll get back together for another conversation, bigger and better. Thanks everyone for watching today. See you next time.